Welcome to You've Got This with Sarah Hamaker, a podcast to encourage and equip moms along their parenting journey. Join Sarah each week as she interviews dads and moms like you and discusses the joys, challenges, and rewards of raising kids.
Hi, and welcome to this week's You've Got This. I'm your host, Sarah Hamaker, and I have with me Tiffany Bluhm. She is a writer and a speaker and a podcast host, and she has a brand new book out, She Dreams, Live the Life You Were Created For, and we're going to get her to talk about that in a little bit. And she's also a co-host of the Why Thou podcast, and she's an in-demand speaker, and she has some kids, and we're just going to have a great time today, I think. Welcome, Tiffany.
Thanks for having me, Sarah.
So let's talk a little bit about the fact that our kids frustrate us.
Girl, I'm going to end up in a maximum security prison if I do not stay the course. One of us is, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's hard. And you have, your kids are fairly young.
Yes,
right?
I have 8 and 4.
8 and 4, yeah. And as my listeners know, I have 4 kids, and they're between the ages of 10 and 16.
Oh.
Yeah. And let me say,
you've got different devils to fight. I still got the ground game. You've got the mental game.
But I remember the ground game. I mean, my kids are fairly, I had, 4 kids within 8 years. So they're fairly close together. And sometimes I can't believe I'm still sane. And, but kids are frustrating to us as parents because they don't react the way we think they should. Right. And then they react the way we think they shouldn't. So how do you deal with that?
I think, first of all, I'm just so excited to talk about this. I'm so passionate about this, and I am not perfect. I am the chief imperfectionist on this issue. But the one thing that I feel like I have committed to growing in and committed to leading my kids in is leaning in when they're losing it. Because I have to remind myself they do not come complete. Like, this is an IKEA purchase. Like, if you get some instructions in another language and you're missing a few parts, and some parts are a little bit damaged and broken, and you just got to figure it out. Like, they are raw materials to be molded. So our constant expectation that they're going to be perfect is always a disappointment to us, right? Because that is not who they are. And neither were we. How easily we forget that we too were a child and did crazy stuff. But I would say my biggest thing is leaning in. When they are struggling, when they're losing it, when they're just hitting the fan, like, lean into whatever that need may be. And I think so many of us, when our kids, they talk back or they exemplify behavior where we just want to flee, we want to leave the room. We are often faced with something in ourselves that we haven't dealt with, something in ourselves that we have not grown through. And so we see it in them and we're like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with this because it means I'm dealing with something in me that I haven't dealt with yet. So even in those moments when my kids just combative and contrarian and just driving me up a wall, leaning in, I'm like, okay, well, these are things I don't like about myself. These are things I don't want him to feel like I'm leaving him just because he's frustrating. How can I really lean in, make eye contact, even have physical touch when we're having the conversation? Because it's much easier to be nice when they're on your lap,
right? Or
when your arms are around them versus they're across the room and you are going to lose it and chuck your shoe. Like, that is, right. I mean, yes, it's so much easier to throw the shoe, but to truly be patient, bite that tongue till it bleeds, and have the conversation will always be worth it. Because at the end of the day, Sarah, we want to be people that can go to sleep at night, right? Like, we don't want to hate ourselves.
That is so true.
I like too, I want to be enjoyable just as much as I want him to be enjoyable. So,
and and that's really where the rubber hits the road, right? I mean, it's so hard to modulate your emotions and your frustrations. And I think of Ken Sande has that wonderful book, The Peacemaker.
Oh, I'll have to check that out.
Oh, it's great. But one of the things that he talks about is overlooking the small stuff. And that's kind of what you're talking about. We need to learn to overlook when our kid, the kind of the junk that our kid does, to get to the heart of the matter, which is we want to continue that relationship with our child, even when we have to correct them.
Right.
But we can't do that if we let our own emotions get, all up because our child left the backpack in the middle of the room again.
Right.
The 35th, 100th time that week after you've asked them, please don't put your backpack right in the middle of the path. It gets harder and harder to overlook those human frailties in our kids.
Absolutely.
And that's what I think makes us want to go, and pull our hair out.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I think another thing, just like you said, the continued wrongdoing in the same direction. I think that's the thing where you're like, how do you not get this? Like, how is this is not how life is lived. Come on, buddy. Come on.
Right. And then sometimes when that happens in my household, I think, what haven't I trained them to do? There's something missing here. And, 90% of the time is because I haven't helped them get the right tools to solve that problem.
Yeah.
It's not so much that they constantly forget, because we all have those, moments where we do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. But it's often, for kids especially, it's often that, there's some training component that's generally missing. And when we kind of can sit down and go, okay, buddy, you keep leaving your backpack in the middle of the floor. Why do you think that is? And then how can we solve that? They need help with that. We can't, most kids, you can't just say stop doing it and they stop doing it.
Exactly. And isn't it just like the brain? When you say don't do something, that's the very thing you want to do versus saying, oh, do this, instead of talking about what they can't do. Like, how can I funnel this into a creative next step where everyone wins and where everyone grows and where we can connect?
Right. And then the idea of using those moments to bless our child instead of, yelling at our child. And I fall short like all the time, Tiffany, keeping it real here. I'm yelling at my kids and I'm going, why am I doing this? I should be, blessing my child. So how are some ways that you bless your children, that maybe my listeners can think about and, translate to their homes?
Yeah, I think our kids all want to feel seen, heard, known, respected, and validated. And I think at some point, if there is a break in a relationship that we had as children with an adult, it was at some point we didn't feel validated in our pain, however small or little or large it was, we did not feel validated. So being able to look at my children and say, the greatest thing I can do is validate your situation and validate your pain and validate your circumstance. And within that, continuously reinforce the person that I know you're becoming, celebrating your inherent worth and value and goodness. And so one of the ways that my husband and I practice that is always reminding, I know who you are. I know who you really are. My son's name is Jericho. We're like, I know who you are, Jericho, and it's a good man. You're a good man.
Right.
Especially when something hits the fan and he makes a poor choice or he hides something, which is, we're at that age where a lot of hiding, whether it's candy or whatnot, And I'm like, I know who you are. It's a good man. So when we catch him in the act, we discipline and build in consequences, and then we reinforce the person he really is becoming. We know this is not who you are. This moment doesn't define you. We know who you really are, and it is good. It is so good. So that's been a really great moment where he feels validated and he feels like we're rooting for him. Like we're not on different sides of the team here. We are all a team together.
Yeah. And I love that, Tiffany, because I think that really speaks to helping our kids realize that we do want them to succeed.
Absolutely.
One of the things we tell our kids is, we have the consequence, we talk about it, and I look at them, I say, I know you're going to do better next time. I know you can do better next time. Yeah. I know that you will do better next time. And also reminding them that, I love them. And this, whatever it is, this not so great grade at school, this, I lost his temper again with his sibling, that this isn't who they really are. Yes. This is just sin rearing its ugly head again, in our lives.
Absolutely. So well said, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. So what are some of the ways that you connect with your kids? Because I know that sometimes we struggle with, especially if we have a kid who's having a, continual discipline problem, we can forget to make those kind of connections with them so that we don't always want to scream at them when they do that.
It's true though, isn't it? Because you're like, oh yes, I love you, but I want to like you. Like, I want to be around you.
Right, exactly.
Oh, totally. I think both of my children are so very different, but with my oldest, who we're having more of these, where the rubber hits the road issues, is really making time for just one-on-one. I mean, he needs it. He so craves quality time. And so being able to meet that need. And also it's firing endorphins in my brain too, when we're together. And it is really a beautiful thing because we want to be able to, when we have the hard conversations, we want to stand on top of a firm foundation where we feel connected and where we feel like we're rooting for each other. So, I would say quality time. And one of the things now, I mean, if this is not the most ridiculous thing, don't get me wrong. We do more extravagant dates. We go on walks and go to the park and we do all the things. But one of the things lately, because we don't have a ton of time, is we'll do drive-through dates. And so we'll just drive through Starbucks. We won't even get a drink. We'll just get a cookie or something, both of us. And then we'll just sit in the car because if it's the drive from, school to Starbucks home and just get to talk, he's in the back, he's eating, he feels like he has an activity and he'll spill his guts to me versus if we were somewhere else, he might not be as willing to share. So it's been a sweet time. It was his idea. Let's do drive-through dates. And I'm like, that's a great idea.
That is great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Especially if it's we only have, 25 minutes. We're like, how can we make the most of this time?
Right. And I think sometimes just taking advantage of those moments that we have. One of the things that I started years ago, since I work from home, I can be working all the time. All the time. And one of the things that I did was when my kids came home from school, I made sure that I would stop work and I would go up and greet them. And we wouldn't have long conversations. Believe me, my teenagers are like, yeah, Mom, we got you. Go down. See you later. But I think it's just important to acknowledge that they're home, and I can kind of gauge whether they had a good day or a bad day by how they sling their backpack on the floor, And, I do it for my boys when they come home from elementary school too. Just that quick check-in has just helped our relationship to know that I notice when they're home. I notice when they always say goodbye when they leave for school. And those just little things, we forget how much those little things can be so impactful on our kids.
Absolutely. They really are watching. They're really picking it all up of their place in the family and their value in the family.
Yeah. And I want my kids to feel that they're valued in the family. That we're a team, that is Team Hammaker, and they're all a part of it. Sometimes they say they don't want to be a part of it, but but that's just kids talking. So I don't pay that much attention to that.
Absolutely. Going back to that team idea as well, one of the things that our little guys are obsessed with, they're, again, 8 and 4, is The Incredibles, especially with the second.
Love those movies.
Yeah. And so one of the things we've been talking about is what's your superpower? So, and one of them will say forgiveness, or my superpower is sharing, or my superpower is asking for help, even though I feel like I can do it better by myself and isolating. So we all kind of share like, well, what's your superpower today? And so that's been one thing. It's like, oh no, this is special. This is what makes us special, is forgiveness and sharing, and basically the fruit of the spirit.
Right.
Yes, gentleness is your superpower. Self-control by God's grace. Yes, please, child, please.
Yes. Sometimes we want to assign those superpowers. Can you have kindness as your superpower today, please? Because we need to. Yeah, I love that idea. And I think when we can encourage that kind of thinking, that, kindness and gentleness and self-control, that those are superpowers, that those are, just as important as being able to, leap tall buildings in a single bound, kind of thing. I think that just helps our kids realize that, what we value as a family. And the more that we can kind of talk about what we value and instill that in our kids, the more connected we'll feel and the less frustrated, we'll get with them, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So we are coming toward the end of our time, but I did want to talk about your new book because I love the title, She Dreams. That is so great. So tell me a little bit about, about your book and, what is it about?
Yeah, absolutely. She Dreams, Live the Life You Were Created For, came out of this just this understanding that for so many women, dreams are such a tender topic. For so many of us, dreams feel self-indulgent. Dreams feel like they're for everybody else but us. Perhaps we had kids young or didn't finish school or were up to our ears in other responsibilities that we could never dream wild, audacious dreams. We could never do something bigger or greater or sweeter or even more simple than we are right now. So it really addresses this idea that it's everyone's birthright to dream, no matter what you've come from, no matter where you're at right now. Dreams don't have to rot on the shelf. Again, they might sit on there for at some point in time, but not forever. And I think so many of us, we don't dream big dreams because we don't want to be disappointed. So it really takes time to have introspective moments of looking at when you felt disappointed in the past and what happened. What did you learn from that? Perhaps you can glean something from that and not feel like it is what will break you, rather than it could be the making of you. It could be exactly what you need to move forward.
Right. And I think that one of my other, besides helping parents be better parents, one of my other passions is helping moms realize that they're more than a mom. And not to discount mothering. That's not what I'm saying. But
absolutely,
so often we allow ourselves to be kind of just all consumed by being a mom that we forget that we can have dreams.
Yeah.
Right? That we can think big things and do big things and small things as well. Is that kind of
yeah, exactly
the topic of your book? Yeah. Great. So thank you so much for being with me today, Tiffany.
It was a treat. Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to You've Got This. I'm your host, Sarah Hamaker, and today I had with me Tiffany Bluhm. She is an author and a blogger and a speaker and a podcast host, and her new book, She Dreams, Live the Life You're Created For, came out this spring, and if you want to find out more, you can look in the link that's included with this podcast, and we will see you next week. Thanks again.
Thanks for listening to this week's podcast of You've Got This with Sarah Hamaker. Sign up to receive notification of new podcasts and listen to previous editions at sarahhamaker.com. Until next time, remember, parenting might be hard sometimes, but don't worry, you've got this.